Hello YouTube. This is a bit of a loose response to A.V. the Evangelist, but it's also some commentary on, from experience, is a typical evangelical response to 1 Corinthians 11. So I have to give you some props, A.V. the Evangelist, with being consistent in your practice regarding your beliefs with respect to this passage. That women have to veil their heads when praying or prophesying, and men aren't allowed to have long hair. And with your typical evangelical Christian, you're going to have two dogmatic presuppositions. One being that you're a creationist, and two being that you're a biblical inerrantist. So the Bible can't contain any errors or contradictions. And if you're going to hold these two presuppositions, your view of nature is going to be exactly the same as Paul's. And if that's the case, you have to agree with what he says in this passage, because he gives the biblical order of creation and his view of nature itself as the reasoning for these commands. And what evangelicals typically do with this passage is that they have to create a rationalization in order to resolve the cognitive dissonance they experience by holding to the belief in biblical inerrancy, but they're also seeing something that they disagree with, but they would never admit that they disagree with it. They think that they can't. So they have to create the rationalization that this only applied in that particular cultural context, even though there's absolutely nothing in the passage that gives an inkling of a suggestion of that. So, I wanted to get across that the thinking that I applied in a video response to Christopher L. is a whole lot more honest than the typical evangelical rationalizations. So, the other thing that you can do with this passage is acknowledge that you disagree with Paul. And, you can do that in believing that his view of nature was incorrect. And that if his view of nature was incorrect, even though his reasoning may have been sound, he could come to incorrect conclusions. Or you could disagree with his reasoning. And that could be applied to the prescriptions in 1 Corinthians 11, or in the video that I made. It could also be applied to other things in the writings of Paul. But most evangelicals won't allow themselves to do this. So to conclude, I may want to give a little exhortation, take it as you will. You're not going to be struck by lightning for admitting that you disagree with Paul. And you're not going to be attacked by demons. And that it may be more beneficial for you to admit that you can apply a little progressive thinking to these passages and admit that Paul may have gotten something wrong, rather than riddle yourself with rationalizations in order to continue to hold this belief in biblical inerrancy. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the subject. Let me know what you think.